Hello, weirdos. It is Riot at the Movies, along with our good friend, the analog anarchist, Mr. WOC, Morgan White, and
Hello.
our new super guest. It is Professor Caitlin McGurk from the Billy, Ireland. And I kept calling it the Comic Book Museum, but it's the cartoon. And what I had it down because I kept calling it wrong all the time.
So
And,
long.
yeah.
It's
And
unnecessarily long.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so which led me to think for the longest time we've loved Caitlin's work on Saturday morning cartoons. We've referenced it and watched it a lot. We have a want to come to Ohio and visit the museum at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We have been bringing a lot of Americans onto our show to almost keep like a peace treaty with the fact that coming over to America is a little weird this year.
Yeah,
and we're all feeling
doing
weird
the good
about
work
it.
here.
But we're keeping the borders open via the internet for now because we won't be coming to visit Ohio this year anyway.
Completely fair. Most people don't come to visit Ohio ever. So whether it's this year or not, we welcome you someday.
Well, every time I do talk to someone from Ohio, I have to ask them. The only time I've been to Ohio, I've driven through it. I've done the interstate across the East Coast a couple of times, and my memory is touchdown Jesus. Does that mean anything to you?
It does. Yeah. I feel like that's not in the Columbus area. I can't remember exactly where
I
that
don't think
is,
so.
but
No,
I've seen photos of it. I haven't seen it myself.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of amazing roadside weirdness in Ohio. It's good
I think it's closer to Cincinnati because I feel like that's where the interstate highway goes. The first time I ever saw it, because the highways really lifted up the ground over there, we're driving through and it was just below us. It was a giant kaiju-sized Jesus doing this.
It really is just that. Okay, that's what I was going to ask. I didn't know what this was, but that's pretty self-explanatory.
Which, since I went there last, had been hit by lightning, and since it was actually like a hollow statue with a metal frame, it melted, and they've supposedly built a little less scary one since then. But
even better.
Anytime I meet anyone from Ohio, it's the first thing I ask, and they're like, "Yeah, I know of it."
Yeah,
That's one of the weird parts.
Our big thing here in Columbus is that we have an Arnold Schwarzenegger statue, made out of bronze in downtown Columbus, and it's pretty huge and fun to take photos with. It seems it's like the most random thing.
Yeah, why? Why?
The reason why is it's not that interesting, but to explain it is basically he, I guess, won his first bodybuilding championship in Columbus, Ohio, and so when he started, if you've ever heard of the Arnold Classic, which is the world's largest bodybuilding competition, he started in Columbus as sort of a dedication to the city because of that, and it's our largest the city's largest money-making thing economically each year. And so they erected a statue of him. So
I guess if we had watched Pumping Iron recently, we might have thought of that.
Yeah, we might have known.
We watched Canadian produced documentary Comic Book Confidential, which I reached out and asked if you were aware of it. You said yes, but now you're even thinking, how long has it been since I've seen it?
A very long time.
I asked my usual partner, Morgan, if he'd ever seen it. He says, I think so. And
then, a long time ago as well.
Then rewatched it this morning.
Yeah.
Which is okay because it gives us the chance to go off topic and talk about all kinds of things in the comic book world, in the artist world. Morgan, as far as I've known with the years with you, you were never the comic book nerd that I was.
No, I mean, I liked comic books when I was a kid. I was really big into Superman for 3 or 4 years. Right around the time they got married. I think that was the big thing that happened when I was reading them. But yeah, no, it was never a big thing for me. But cartoons, watching cartoons on TV, that was definitely my thing. Yeah. I was more into that. That's how I got my animation.
Is there a red-blooded child on the planet who wouldn't be hypnotized by cartoons? Where is when we've seen you on Saturday morning cartoons and other videos, your niche, I guess, is more the I always call it the Sunday morning funnies, the comic strips, and the classics from those. Where does your level with the comic book world come in for you?
I like dabble in a little bit of everything. The Sunday comics thing tends to be just more of a focus where I work. My actual expertise is in underground comics and alternative comics, and that's like my true passion. Though I also wrote a book about a New Yorker cartoonist, so that doesn't fit in with that at all. But when it comes to actual comic books, I was a reader growing up. I was particularly into X-Men, and I interned at Marvel Comics. So I'm from New York originally, and I helped build the archive on the publishing floor at Marvel. So that was amazing, and then stayed on like beyond my internship to help with other projects. So I'm still friends with some of the editors there and stuff. And yeah, it was really a formative part of my youth. But I can't say I still keep up with anything that's coming out today. Like I don't, I'm not a Wednesday warrior, as they put it, and, that kind of person. But I respect and appreciate it a great deal. So
once in a while, when I'm doing like a sort of wander downtown and show up at one of the older comic book shops in Toronto, I will pick up a random thing. But I find that I really sadly locked myself into that grumpy 40-year-old man thing where I'll read it and go, well, this doesn't fit what I liked out of it. And as soon as I hear myself say that in my head, I'm like, okay, put it down and just walk away, Adam. You don't need to be that guy.
Yeah.
That's
how you know it's not for you anymore. That's what I tell people. Like, if it's made for new audiences. They're changing it up all the time to keep those audiences and get new readers. So
it's okay to grow out of things. It doesn't matter that much.
My only irk of it is when I go to these comic book stores and I'll talk to the guys who run it, and I'll be like, and I'll ask, does this kick with the kids? Do they like this? This is what an old man would say. Does this kick with the kids? I just make things up.
I like this new phrase. Yeah.
It's just really old before everyone else's time. Back in the jazz days. But and they'll always grumble going, what? Kids don't read any of this. There's never kids here. Right. And they're so grumpy, belligerent. There's sort of a stereotype of like old man who runs a record shop, old guy who runs a comic book shop. Whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Way worse.
Right.
It's all kind of in the same wheelhouse. But do you think that like kids even understand the concept of a paper comic book anymore? Like actually going and buying a physical comic book?
What I have seen is that it's almost entirely at this point like kids who have parents that are really into comic books that are actually reading them, because we're not at a point anymore where you like see comic book shops at the supermarket or the card store or whatever, and so kids used to be introduced to them that way, and it was this like like picking up a toy at the grocery store or whatever. But so I think unless you're seeking out a comic book shop, there's no reason a kid's going to go in there unless their parents are really into it. And what kind of bums me out extra is I was hoping that maybe the movies would be like a gateway, like all the Marvel movies and stuff would be a gateway to people reading more comic books, and it is absolutely not at all. No. So, and in fact, I think I've talked to a lot of like OSU students where I work who love the movies, and then I try to tell them about like the origins of some of the characters, and it's just like complete gloss over, like could care less. So. Yeah.
Well, you do get the same thing that me as an adult and me as an old getting there old guy would say, where I'm like, oh, this wasn't what I remember.
Right.
So the same if you were introduced to it by the movies and you go to the comic books and find how different it is, it alienates you from it, which, I mean, that's always going to be a problem.
Totally.
However, luckily with that mass media, like bringing back X-Men, the cartoon, it was killing it. People are loving that. So whatever, they're all going to survive in those ways. However, as you mentioned with the underground comics, it was this documentary that when I first saw it, I would have been 14 in like 1994, and I've given away all.
You're really dating yourself.
And it showed up on a channel in Toronto called City TV, which is a real kind of
also
edgy,
an underground
kind of channel. It was really the same people ran Much Music, which was Canada's answer to MTV.
Yeah.
So the show was the channel was rather crazy, but like all Canadian channels, we legally have to play a certain amount of Canadian content every day. So once in a while, late at night, you would see something where you'd be like, why is this playing on here? So they would play documentaries at the end of the night.
So many documentaries at
something
2 a.m.
Canadian. And so Ron Mann's documentary came up, and that's how I knew it was Canadian. And that was also the first time as a kid not living in Toronto at the time, living in a smaller town, discovered the comic book shop Silver Snail, which appears in the documentary, and it does it in a little montage to show like how big business it is now, and it was showing like a big lineup at the cash and them just dishing out all those comics. And this is made in 1988. At the time that I was seeing this in 94, that was the Tom McFarlane, Rob Liefeld era where it didn't matter how crap it was. I was believing you didn't need to draw feet and you should just wear pockets. Like it was all the.
Rob, have you had any formal art training?
No, just a lot of imagination, I think. Wait so I say it and then look down, or just open it and say, fly button.
Mattered to me. I look back on that and I'm like, well, this is not what I would pick up, but it definitely set the time. That was, I guess, Death of Superman. So I was, when that comic came out, I was first in line at my local comic shop, and so was the local newspaper. So they took a picture of me pretending that I was shocked by the comic book.
Oh, really?
That's adorable.
I hope you have it.
Yeah,
That's
please just put that on screen right now.
Yeah, my mom has it somewhere, probably laminated.
Wow. That's adorable.
That's the childhood stories, but that shows how like addicted I was to it. Also, how big money it was, because that was the time when everything was like some crazy cover. The kids were spending thousands of their parents' dollars just to get their monthly comics. Right. I remember having at my local shop the ability to reserve titles, and I knew everyone that was supposed to be the cool comic to get, and I would never have enough money to get the stuff they reserved for me. So then my dad would begrudgingly go in there and bail my reserved order out and get mad at me every time. That was just the mid 90s. Kids were crazy about it. We were also being told this is all going to be worth money. This is all investors' games.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Which, yeah, right.
Not from that era, at least.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, all those things that 5 minutes in were worth thousands of dollars, 2 years later were worth less than cover price. So, I mean, what are you going to do? And I honestly didn't worry about that. I was just addicted. It got me into learning about weirder things, like, again, the underground titles. When finding that documentary for the first time, that would be the first time that I had ever heard about Arkham, or even more fringe things like Spain, or Gilbert Shelton for the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, which my girlfriend loves those guys. And when that cartoon recently came out, she was furious. She hated it so bad.
It's terrible. It's real bad. Everyone hates it who works in comics too. So it's so embarrassing.
I'd always said anything that had John Goodman in it can't be bad, and it's the one thing. It proved me wrong. That cartoon is so bad.
It also just makes no sense. Like, of all things to bring back, why did they think that was like a good thing to revive? Totally. As if anyone now had ever heard of it, you know? It's, very strange choice.
My partner's, her dad owns like the oldest bookstore in our hometown, so like her dad's a big like hippie for that kind of stuff. So for them, it's all sci-fi books and hippie fringe comics.
That's awesome.
And so it totally fit for us, and which is why we're together for 20 years and still weirdos. But thinking of with how that documentary kind of brought that as a limelight to probably a lot of people my age who were all just superheroes. And then they were like, oh, this other stuff exists, which is always weird to me. Why do people still to this day go, oh, this stuff is for kids? Because the stuff was already old to me. These titles were come and gone by the time I was hearing about them. And there was no way these were for kids. Nobody was even planning that. It wasn't like a mistake, like, ooh, we're going to put weird, edgy things in a kid's comic book. That was never the plan.
Yeah. For sure. You wouldn't have known that or even known those existed unless you were going into head shops. Like, those weren't being sold anywhere other than head shops, pretty much, you know, at the time that they were being produced. So if you were going into comic book shops, you were mostly just seeing the mainstream stuff. Yeah. Or if you were just reading newspapers, you're assuming it's for kids. But I just think that people have this weird bias against anything that is image heavy. People immediately think is dumb. You know, like even illustration in general was never considered fine art, let alone cartoons. So it started to change, obviously, a ton, especially once graphic novels existed. But it is a little absurd that anyone ever thinks that. My opinion is that, like, the world of comics is also just full of like really terrible a lot of terrible vocabulary. Like calling it comics to begin with makes everyone assume it's meant to be comical, and obviously not all comics are funny. And then even the term graphic novel, the amount of people I've spoken to through my job who think it's like that means like pornographic novel or novel for adults is it's all really misleading terms.
Well, it's also connected to, sadly, from in my generation's a lot to blame with this, of nerdy, I don't want to throw the word incel, but sort of misogynistic men who their answer every word is, actually, that's called a graphic novel. Like, it's because of that, it's you can't say the word graphic novel without hearing comic book guy's voice in your head, which I can understand. How could that scare you away? And if I thought of anyone who wasn't into that when I was 15, if they hung out with me and my close group of friends, they wouldn't want to hang out with us very long. Like, I don't blame them at that time. I still don't blame them, but somehow people do. What we are going to show you first, though, I think should be actually, I was going to say Prisoners of Gravity or a commercial of Silver Snail that we talked about. What do you think, Morgan?
Well, let's do the Silver Snail commercial we were just talking about. So yeah, this is the comic book shop. I mean, I went to this comic book shop when I moved to Toronto too. Is this the same location that it was when it was on Queen Street that's featured in the documentary?
No, the place.
No, it is a different one. Okay.
Whatever that is in the documentary, I don't know where that is.
Okay.
It used to have a place in Ottawa. They don't have it there anymore. That was their second one. When I moved to Toronto about 15 years ago, there was a massive big purple house that they had on Queen Street that everybody loved.
Yeah, that was
Guillermo del Toro and Patton Oswalt used to. I'd often come there early in the morning, and they'd be waiting for the door to open.
Wow.
They just come in. That's the time I'd bump into them.
It was a cool place to be.
That's crazy.
Then that building got sold. They went to a weird little downtown place, which I found a commercial for the release of that. And now they're a tiny, tiny place right next to where the place we do all our events are, is a video store called Eyesore Cinema. Their location is right next door to the old Eyesore where you and I first met.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's right next door to it. It's tiny. It's almost all toys. Like almost none of it is comic books. I'm pretty sure Del Toro's pretty depressed when he walks into there.
All right, well, let's relive the golden days with this commercial instead of talking about animated how depressing it's become.
But at some point, they had real commercials with an amazing animator making this crazy thing.
Okay.
This appears to come from some sort of master tape. I don't know where.
Yeah, somebody only posted this a couple of months ago, the artist who made it. And he said he made this in like early 90s. But it's so heavy metal. They have a statue of this robot in the shop.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Totally heavy metal.
Is this the Silver Snail?
I guess.
Silver Snail? Okay.
Yeah. Is the Silver Snail as a bat?
I mean, I guess he's got like little antennae things, right?
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Wow.
You could be the Silver Snail.
Oh, at that point, there was 3 locations. I don't think there's one in Hamilton anymore either.
Yeah,
that's really lovely.
Yeah, that was really well done. Yeah, and it had total like Nelvana vibes to it. Like that's what I was thinking.
I feel like it's not the best as far as actually advertising the store.
Yeah, not at all.
Nothing that says the Silver Snail aloud at all, audio-wise. If you're getting a snack or something. Like that was on TV?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, something. Yeah, because it wouldn't have been there was no YouTube in the mid-90s.
Right, yeah. Strange, but beautiful, and definitely super heavy metal. I like it.
Yeah, that was really good.
I just recently came across a cartoon, I think only 30 minutes cartoon called The Body Electric. Have either of you heard of this? Did I mention this to you, Morgan?
No.
I just came across it randomly online, so I had to look up what the deal with it, because it was animated by the people that did the Captain Stern skit that's in heavy metal. You remember the one where the big guy he gets giant at the courtroom to let the guy escape?
Yeah.
So it's animated by them, and it's done to a EP album by Rush. I was hearing all these songs in it. I'm like, it all sounds like Rush, but I don't know these songs. And it was, I guess,
sign me up. This sounds amazing.
It was made to release this EP where it's like 5 songs that play, and the cartoon happens in it. It's about 2 teenagers who exist in the wasteland after robots have destroyed the city and like locked everybody in.
Great.
And it feels like it was definitely meant to be something way bigger, because it definitely like boom encapsulates the end in like 5 seconds at the end. It wasn't meant to be 30 minutes.
Yeah, right.
but I was like, wow, our our local animators were either just smoking some amazing stuff back then or just getting government money to make whatever. We're
I
like,
mean, yes to both of those. 100%. Yeah.
What a time to be alive, to be
Yeah.
I wouldn't say good friends with them, but there's a guy I know in Toronto called John Decline. John Decline is an aging grumpy old man, which will come up as a theme in almost everybody from 80s animators and 80s comic book writers. I don't know what's wrong with these guys, why everything went so grumpy to them, but he is a hilariously grumpy old guy, and he was one of the head department animators on Inspector Gadget and Care Bears. And then later in the 90s, he was the writer director from like Tales of the Crypt Keeper and a bunch of like little kids shows. He even wrote. He's quoted as the gag writer in the 2 Madballs movies, the 2 like failed pilots that they did. And John would show up to a lot of film festivals in town. He was just a film nerd, and he's this classic kind of just quiet old man. He kind of looks and talks like Bill Stein. Is that what the guy was from when Bill Stein's Money?
Bob Stein.
Yeah, right. And but he kind of talks and sounds like him. Ben Stein, there we go.
It was a B name.
Yeah. But at some points after events, I would just sort of end up in the same corner of the booth of the bar with him, and I'd be like, "Oh, hey, John, how's it going?" "I don't know. Hasn't been the same since 1993. Back then is when things were good and there was good quality in the world." And like, I sound like I'm bashing it, and I kind of am, but it's, if anyone in Toronto knows him, they know. You'll sit and listen to that.
I know at least 10 people in this city that are exactly the same that you just explained.
Right. Who like worked in the industry when that boom happened for us. And the thing I just missed, I don't know. Maybe I would have made some money at that point and then be a grumpy old man now. I don't know. Would I?
Who's to say?
Yeah. Which when recently in Morgan's search for tapes, he was given a message by someone saying, "Oh, I have this storage locker that's filled with VHS tapes taped off TV," which we found had like in like almost chronological order several years of the beginning of Much Music or MTV.
Yeah. And so many amazing things. Yeah,
it was then.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So it was like 1,500 tapes. And in it was this television show that aired on our public broadcasting channel here in Ontario called TVO. And it's called Prisoners of Gravity. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. I don't know if it made it into the States. It probably played on PBS at some point. That's my guess.
Do you know of the Red Green show, which was sort of a phenomenal Canadian thing?
No? Okay. That's
Red Green was like sort of our answer to Ernest, I feel.
Yeah,
really? 100% our answer.
Cool.
It has a weird, it's one of those the Canadian things that Kevin Smith really loves. Like it's one of those weird Canadian things that did play on American channels.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look it
One
up.
of the guy who co-created that, who's he's the Green out of that name. He plays a character on this show called Commander Rick. Yeah. Commander Rick is stuck in a satellite floating in the earth, and his video phone only calls sci-fi writers and comic book writers.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, okay, so it's like a magazine type show where he interviews sci-fi writers. So I pulled a clip from an episode, and this is they're talking about Metamorphosis and the Swamp Thing is the big character. Oh yeah, and it starts like it's a nature show, and then he like takes over. It's just super Canadian.
Yeah.
The moonlight beams, pale catalytic arrows pierced him. His blood thumped.
It's the crap we have to watch.
I love this already.
Caught in a bag.
It's very esoteric, and it's kind of tedious, but I figure you're used to Joe, so you should be able to take it.
Hair straightened out. An exquisitely pleasurable sensation rippled through him. He swelled like the throat sac of a bullfrog. His nose ran. The fluid oozed over his lips, which were puffing outward. Buckley's cough syrup tastes bad, but it works.
What?
Okay, I'm lying. It's the transformation to
it's all dad jokes.
To Philip Jose Farmer. Yes, friends, we're going to talk about metamorphosis. You know, just for a nice change.
So here, this is gonna explain Commander Rick and how he leaves
Earth.
Earth.
Awesome.
Rising
anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe has voted.
He was a legendary comedian in Canada. He had a lot of different shows in the early 80s.
And so this show's actually kind of lost. So our public broadcaster, or rather our government in their infinite wisdom, decided to get rid of all the master tapes.
Oh,
So this show really only exists on tapes like what I collect, just randomness.
And
So
do you have many of them? Or
yeah, I'm pretty sure that in this collection I have the whole show. 'Cause whoever collected or taped these tapes was like really into this and taped all of it.
Do you know who did the artwork?
Greetings, prisoners of gravity.
No
This
idea.
Is the commander,
Really
living
cool.
proof of the theory of devolution. Metamorphosis has been a really.
I mean, he's
popular
still
theme in
around.
literature.
We really should reach out to him.
You guys gotta interview this guy.
He's got a YouTube channel. We should totally have him on.
Oh yeah. I think once he made the Red Green Show, he was kind of a legend. Like they had movies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This is really charming.
In comics, metamorphosis started out simply. A guy steps into a phone booth and emerges a superhero. A young draftee is injected with Professor Reinstein's serum and becomes a frisbee-flinging hero.
Yay, drugs.
I would have loved this if I was watching this as a young person. I mean, I love it right now. I can't believe this was on your local television.
A silly putty man.
Yeah, I can remember
and a
watching this as a
walking
kid,
patio.
being fascinated by it.
Radiation also
This definitely
creates a
helped get me into
wet-spinning
sci-fi.
teenager and
That
These
and
are
my
the
dad.
best flying windows I've ever
with
seen.
an attitude.
There you go. Yeah.
One poor schmuck got sped up by an accidental injection.
You can't
of
send that one to
mongoose
Nick.
blood.
That's ours. Okay.
Yeah, that's our flying window.
Yeah.
I have more coming up later too.
My favorite comic
course I
involving
do.
metamorphosis is Swamp Thing, especially from 1983 to 87, the classic Bissett, Moore, and Toddleben years. They explored both the physical transformation and the emotional.
The premise of Swamp Thing is a man who has
I used to work with Steve. He's like,
Oh, really?
He's a good friend of mine. He's like really kind of a mentor to me.
Oh, wow.
So,
Oh, I'm glad I picked this
wonderful,
kid.
wonderful man.
Swamp Thing, some sort of
He was on Saturday morning. With
Right.
us.
And
Yeah.
that's why we were late to send you a link, because I was like, wait, was it Steve? And then I was mixing it up with the time you brought JJ Sideman in there,
Yeah.
and I was like, right, which
I would love to send this to Steve if he.
Yeah,
if
I'll
I
send
could
you the
get
clip, of course. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, this is awesome.
This figure of
everybody in comic books had that hair at that point, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Steve used to own a video store too.
Case in
Vermont.
point.
Oh, and I think I knew that too.
Universe. He was a big, strong guy.
Speaking of comic book writers who are really just grumpy old bastards.
Seriously, the grumpiest of all. Yeah.
Entertainingly grumpy, but
Yeah.
Does his shirt say yo to drugs?
I think so. Yeah, it's kind of great. But who's on it? I can't tell who that is.
I don't know. It looked like the Reanimator.
Yeah, or one of the Revenge of the Nerds. Kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
The whole premise of the strip was this guy was trying to regain his.
Alan Moore in a muscle shirt is kind of weird.
Apparently, they would interview people coming to like the Toronto Comic Con, so they'd like they knew that they were coming, and they'd get them in a room and interview them, and just and I guess they have they interviewed hundreds and hundreds of comic book artists and stuff. Like they interviewed everybody at this time, so this is a good record of that time period
Have
as
you
well.
put these all online? This is
No, I haven't. I'm just trying to figure out even how many I have.
People would be so stoked about this.
Shoot, they're jamming.
I love this
They're on-
man.
Listen, I don't have long now. If we're going to stop
He
the
definitely
censors
also
and the
got
book burners, we've got to
censors
start
the book
writing
burners.
letters. We've got to keep talking.
Oh, I love how you cut this. You got the beginning and the end, because every episode
Yeah.
ended with the government trying to take him out to like.
Yeah, just to like stop his broadcast.
That's so great.
Oh no!
The starter off my
Uh-oh.
car. So long, prisoner.
Caitlin disappeared.
It cut and it lost Caitlin out of it. She'll be back.
A few moments later.
The government tried to stop you too,
What just
Caitlin.
happened? Am I back in?
Yeah, you're back in.
There's a gravity
There you go.
on
That's
Sorry,
funny.
I don't even know what happened. Yeah.
That's funny. It's like the government. Yeah, they
It's never
kicked
happened
you
in
out.
all the times I've been recording on Spring Yard. It's very strange. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Commander Rick, he did it.
Yeah.
The ceiling.
Okay, so this obviously aired during
Commander
a
Rick is about
telethon.
to the prisoners you're going to find anywhere in the landscape. And as he
The landscape.
brings us prisoners of gravity, looking for those comic books and talking
Totally
about
shit the bed
censorship.
on that.
The kinds of subjects that
I love that you can like see his mind stop working as he's speaking. He's like, I don't know what to say.
That's every video we've ever done, Morgan.
Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong. Okay.
That was so charming. Thank you for introducing me to Commander Rick.
Yeah, of course.
That show introduced me to 2000 AD, which I became hugely addicted to, and all the guys who worked on that, who all came to America and became big names, who are either in the last 5 years, either all dying or saying things terribly controversial on the internet, and no one should ever talk to them.
Those are the two options, basically, for that era.
What I mean, one of the biggest guests that they would have on all the time was Harlan Ellison, and it's like he's so one of those dads or grandpas that you're like at a family gathering and you're just waiting. Oh no, don't keep talking. You're gonna say something really bad. I just know it. And, which a lot of those guys are, which I'm not shocked gave again this toxic masculinity, or not even toxic masculinity, toxic nerdness to the field, which is why bringing it back to the documentary on VHS, that one of the bits that stuck out for me, and a woman I had no idea who she was and had to look her up for it. What is Sherilyn? Yeah, right, Sherry
Flanagan. Yeah, she's the best. She's awesome.
I've had contact and pass with them.
Oh yeah, I've met with her. I've met her a number of times. She did Trots and Bonnie, she was like one of the few, female underground cartoonists, and one of the greats. She was part of that like Air Pirates crowd, she's just a fantastic cartoonist. That is one of the things I remember, is that the documentary has like very few women in it, and she's one of them, and like maybe one of 2 or 3. So yeah,
I was looking, so I always remember her bit in it, because one of the best bits of the documentary is they let the artists or the writers read a bit from one of their comics, and they do these really cinematic shots of the panels to kind of give you like a fake animated bit, with
like the Ken Burns effect.
Right.
Yeah, right. And so one of the best that stands out for that is like Harvey Pekar does one, and nothing matches his voice and his presentation of his own work.
So wonderful.
But hers is really amazing when she reads so innocently Trots and Bonnie. And as a kid, that stuck with me, and I could never find it. I never knew what it was. I never knew where to find what the comic was, realizing it was a National Lampoon's collected comic book. It wasn't something that it really existed very much separately, in its own printings. But the bit that they do in the documentary is where they're gonna, I guess the little brother is going to be executed for raping a cat, and they're going to put him into a kiddie pool with a toaster to kill him.
That shocked me.
And I like, oh,
sounds about right. Yeah.
That is shocking. I mean, you're in the documentary the classics, which I had to look up to realize, a lot of these guys made it pretty close to the 21st century, like Will Eisner actually he did. Bob Kane is in it, which there's not many interviews really with him in anything. Of course, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, but like, as always, he's in character. So
naturally,
it's a one interview with Stan Lee is pretty much the same as any other.
He's doing his entire interview standing in front of a Spider-Man pinball machine that keeps playing the pinball, like the theme, every like on a loop, like every 15 seconds. So he'll be talking, and then you'll just hear ding 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 in the background, and then it continues. It's ridiculous.
But the bit which I didn't know until looking into it, when Sherry Flanagan appears in it, she appears right after Dan O'Neill talks about Air Pirates, and they don't really allude that they were together on that project, because Dan O'Neill's in a skit which feels so fake.
Is he the guy that's playing pool with the prostitutes?
Yeah, or like
that's what he does his entire interview, playing a game of pool, and there's 2 women in very skimpy outfits, like those have to be prostitutes.
There's bending over and showing the button.
So strange.
And that's Dan O'Neill. And he's just smoking, playing in this like club that has porn on the walls, and it has these girls playing with him. So the 3 people pool doesn't make any sense to begin with, and it's so fake thing, and he's really sarcastically and sounding drunk talking about how they were sued for making that. I looked into it, and that Sherry was the one who wasn't sued because she wasn't given much credit on the comic book, so I guess luckily for her. Right. But it reminds me of one of my other favorite documentaries of all time, made by the director of Wayne's World, Decline of Western Civilization. And that specifically the sequel, which got me into hair metal and everything that I love of that genre, where every time everybody seems sort of on the level in their clips in the documentary, except when any members of Kiss show up. They're in a situation where it's obviously been set up that these girls are in position. The camera will walk by and randomly a girl will come up and go, "Oh, hey Gene, what are you doing there?"
Right,
I'm like,
right.
everybody else feels real except for them.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Dan O'Neill does not feel real. It feels like they said,
totally.
"We're gonna interview you," and he's like, "Give me a day to set up a weird scenario to make
I'm
everyone
sure.
uncomfortable."
Yeah, it just adds to the mystique of the Air Pirates thing and the underground thing. I wonder who the women are. I gotta see it to see like who the prostitutes are. I'm guessing
if they're like
other probably female cartoonists or friends of theirs.
Maybe I mean, or it was just 1988 and that was the sleaziest bar and that's what those girls were like. I mean, they when you give them a rough term on there, because when you do think it's 88, Morgan, they do just look like they really like the Misfits and Gem.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And they're wearing.
I might be reading into things. I just thought it was an odd setup for an interview.
Oh yeah,
I've never seen an interview done like that before.
And the cameraman pans away and starts to notice them more than him.
Oh yeah, like very strategically pans away, and I'm like, this is very odd.
Which,
whatever.
In general, it doesn't do that throughout the documentary, which makes me wonder where some of the because again, these would be from people of all different styles, generations. Then the list goes on that documentary of all the names from that part of history. And it makes me wonder if the cameramen are all Ron Mann, or if it's just
I think
he told someone in that town, "Hey, can you find that person for me?" And you film them. So then they send him this really weird thing, and he's like, "Fine, I'll use it." I have no idea, but it's it makes it interesting because it changes it up a bit, and then gives us a full skit for Zippy, which became a weird addiction for me in the 90s, made me discover a lot of my brain at that point.
You were addicted to Zippy?
Yeah.
Did you have to go to rehab for that?
Kinda, yeah.
This shoe is real dirty. I wish I had some taco sauce.
I mean, if you read enough Zippy, you're on drugs. And Bill Griffith just does a skit where he plays Zippy and then he changes back into himself.
I remember that very vividly. I feel like I've seen that clip before too, pulled out of this many times. Yeah.
Which I later found online. He did other skits of that though.
Yeah.
There are other weird little skits of him as Zippy in a laundromat talking to Sartre inside a washing machine. I mean, that's just what his stuff was. I actually got to meet him once, actually up here for 5 seconds at a packed panel. And then he just sort of wandered away, and I got to bump into him separately and say, "I'm glad I did not become addicted to drugs after becoming addicted to Zippy comic books."
Yeah, I got to hang around with him a lot this time last year because out here at the Billy Ireland, I put together this big weekend-long event called Nancy Fest.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a multi-day celebration of the comic strip Nancy, which I'm obsessed with, and Bill Griffith is as well. And he wrote a book that came out, or wrote and drew a graphic novel that came out a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, called 3 Rocks, that is all about the creator of Nancy, Ernie Bushmiller.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a biography of him in comic book form, and it's amazing. Cool. And it also, for a lot of most of it is Bill Griffith's drawings, but then he inserts a lot of Ernie Bushmiller's drawings from Nancy into the book too. So anyway, he came out to Nancy Fest and gave a talk and stuff, and it was a blast. Yeah, he's fascinating.
My platform is the same as Ronald Reagan's, except that it includes mandatory hair removal for millionaires.
I'm glad to see that some of those weirdos out there just still the same people they always were.
I mean, if you're gonna invent Zippy, you're gonna stay the same forever.
Yeah, he's got a secret.
I mean, that would break my heart to discover that he's really this grumpy old prick too. And I'm like, no, don't tell me that. I mean, what's it? Darwin Cook was an artist from Toronto as well. I'm sure you know of him. R.I.P. to Darwin. I have a bunch of co-friends. I never met him, but I have friends that were close to him, and they do a gathering every year where they kind of have a drink and a cheers to him and complain about how he was a grumpy old man. And they're all like, he knows it, he wouldn't. And it's like they hold a roast posthumous roast for him every year.
Yeah.
When they're just like, and because they're all like, he would hate it and he would get so mad, and that makes it really funny to us. And I'm like, I guess that's a charming thing where you
It's
can
a nice tribute.
accept, yeah.
I can think of some people to do that for, actually.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Are any of the other like Canadian cartoon, like I guess time wise that might have been too early, but like people like Joe Matt and Chester Brown and stuff, are they in this at all? Or
No,
Seth?
and I mean, and I was going to mention Chester Brown because he's sort of a big thing in the town right now because of the movie based off of his paying it forward made by Toronto local artist Sookian Lee. Sookian comes to the video store that we do stuff a lot, so we've crossed paths with that in the production. That really, I didn't know too much about him until that, and then of course I asked my girlfriend, and she's like, "How do you not know?" And I'm like,
He's in a lot of ways, he is why I have my job today. And
really,
like, yeah, I have some real Chester Brown history. I love him so much, and I love his artwork so much. So yeah, if you have time for a story, when I was in undergrad and was like particularly comics obsessed, I got really into it. And it's still, I would say, is like my favorite graphic novel of all time. His book, I Never Liked You, which was a collection of his stories from his comic book Yummy Fur. And I still feel that this is one of the greatest graphic novels ever created. If you guys haven't read it, you really should. It's absolutely beautiful. And when I was in undergrad, I was in the honors program, and I had to write a senior thesis. And I wrote my thesis about how memory and consciousness works in comics. And I focused it on a few different cartoonists, including Chester Brown and that book. And I had a teacher in undergrad who knew some people tangentially in the comics world. And he told me, he's like, one of the things about this community is that it's really accessible. Like, these are not like far reaching celebrities that you could never possibly meet or whatever. And, we might be able to get in touch with Chester if you want to try to interview him for your thesis. So he was able to get me a P.O. box address for Chester Brown because especially then, and I think still the case now, Chester's like famously an extreme Luddite, does not have a phone, doesn't use a computer, things like that. So I get this P.O. box, and as a 19 or 20-year-old, I write this like multi-page letter to Chester Brown about all my thoughts and theories on comics and my feelings about his work and how much it means to me. Send it off, don't expect to hear anything. And then many months later, I am like rushing to get ready to head to my day job, and my phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's this unknown number. He's like, "Hi, is this Caitlin McGurk? This is Chester Brown. I received your letter, and I'd be happy for you to interview me. I think you have some really great ideas." He was calling me like from a payphone with a calling card and let me interview him. And again, I was like 19 or 20 years old, and I'm almost 40 now. And so I did this whole interview with Chester Brown. I mean, mostly it was him talking to me on the phone, and I'm typing like, "Oh my God, I'm on the phone with Chester Brown" the whole time because I like couldn't focus on what was going on. But it turned into my senior thesis, and it was kind of the moment that made me be like, you know what, like this is a community that I can be part of, and these are people that I can know and have connections to, and it made me pursue what I pursued as a comics librarian. So big Chester Brown fan here.
I'm glad to know. I don't know if it's because of the movie or just the scene that's a little younger than me. I every so often within my film festivals that I've run, I do get a bunch of like local younger students to send me films. Sometimes they don't fit my main thing, so I do like a one-off night where I just let the students come down to the place that we do all our shows at and just have run of the place. And so I've met a lot of like college, end of high school students who are filmmakers. And when I went to the premiere for paying for it, all of them were there. And I was like, they were all, and they could all spout out things about him that I had no idea about. Hence, like I said, when my more fringe artist wife was like, "How do you not know of him?" So in our zeitgeist, I just didn't. And but all of these like 19 to 24-year-old artists who, as you've met some of them, Morgan, who've come to them, and I know I have to tell you right off the bat that they'll all do much more creative things than I've done. But I'm glad to see that they keep with that and know that it's a community-based type of world out there. Maybe because they all go to like every art festival and every film release in Toronto, because there's sort of a too cool part of Toronto where we do that. But the fact that they all knew about him and knew facts that I did not know at all.
Yeah, he
So I
deserves
mean,
it. He deserves
yeah,
respect. Yeah.
which is great to know that even with when we mentioned terrible things like the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers cartoon being terrible, one thing it is doing, it is causing some young people to go and find the old stuff and to find where that's from, and getting reprints of giant omnibuses of some of these titles. What are the guys that I bumped into and I'd never really given a chance to for the longest time, because again, as a mid 90s heavy metal kid, all I want is my shoulder pads and machine guns and my comic books. And thinking again to the documentary when Jamie Hernandez reads a part of Love and Rockets, and everyone I'd met who was into that level of comics was like, it's so much better than the rest of that. Don't worry about it, Adam. Just because the clip it talks about the two girls wanting to buy shoes, as 15-year-old boy me was really alienated by that. And then it wasn't until my adult days that I found like collections of Love and Rockets and was like, wow, how I can love something that I cannot relate to me is a sign of incredible storytelling. Like, I don't associate with anybody in that, but still I want to care about what they do. I want to know what happens to these people. I want to know where it goes. A lot of times when with my love of like my life is bad movies, bad gross out horror movies. So when someone sends me something going, oh, but Adam, this is real and it's relatable to real people, my brain is kind of turned off. I'm like, oh, I don't care, I don't want that. But if it's good, it's good. There's no way to avoid that. Another great thing on there, you get to hear Jamie read a segment in that, which seeing that as a kid did not click with me. Seeing that, rewatching it lately, I'm just like, this is why doesn't TV have writers like this? I got to see Jamie at a signing at the Beguiling, which is the Toronto's cool comic shop. Right. It's the one place that I know has a copy of your book, because they get every time I think, oh, where are we gonna get things from Fantagraphs? And then I'm like, maybe I should order it separately. And they're like, no, we get all the books from them too. You can just come and get it. I'm like, oh, great. So there it is. So yeah, the Beguiling, even that it changed from a really cool groovy house on a street that is no longer in existence of Toronto into technically a smaller building. It's a really cool smaller building that has a secret lower level, and then they bought the little store beside it to make into the kids shop for it. So those guys are still killing it. They and they're not all toys in there, so it's about comics in that
right, right.
Unlike the other stuff. Yeah, and so you get to see that fans still line up down the block, and I think fans maybe understand comics like Love and Rockets. Maybe I just say it biasly for myself, but I think this generation understands that more than they did back then. Definitely. I think people are much more, maybe because of the more multicultural reading of options, the more women reading it, which was one of the first times when I had seen that comic book. I actually kind of thought maybe Jamie was a woman, and it wasn't until it's that documentary I'm like, oh no, Jamie's a guy.
Okay.
Jaime. Am I? Oh, see, I'm saying it wrong too. Yeah, of course it's Jaime. Right. See, and that's what I get from just reading the comic book forever and then not coming back to it. I mean, it's very obvious when you think about that. So,
want to watch another clip?
Sure. What do we got next?
So, Caitlin, one thing that I do with my tapes is that I've been I've like AI transcribed everything, so I can like do keyword searches and search through all of them. Because I have so much stuff, it would be impossible to actually find anything.
Right.
And what I've been doing is like searching up different keywords and seeing what I can find. And I know how much you love Ziggy.
Yeah.
So I thought I would search for Ziggy and see what I could find. So sadly, I couldn't find any actual Ziggy stuff. I'm sorry.
I got so excited.
I know. I tried, but I did find one commercial for a small store called Ziggy and Zon's that was hilarious. So I thought we should watch that as a consolation prize.
Okay.
What's at Ziggy and Zon's World? Yarn, needlepoint, macrame, decoupage, candle making, doll making, candy making, picture framing, food coloring, felt, beads, candles, paints, baskets, birds, feathers, silk flowers, dried flowers, fresh flowers, plants, Hallmark cards, gift wrap, ribbons, crepe paper, hats, Hawaiian decorations, cake pans, cake tops, frosting flowers, cookie cutters, sports novelties,
yeah,
party
right.
favors,
I did. I
plates,
saw
napkins,
it. He
cupcakes,
was there.
decorations,
Yeah.
And you have that cake pan,
There's
right?
more. Make
Of course I
Ziggy
do,
and Zon's
yeah.
World your
See,
communion
I
and
bought-
graduation day
I
headquarters.
bought one
Airport Plaza,
to
Union
give to
and
Nick,
Genesee.
and when I saw Nick 2 years ago, it was
Where
right
was it?
after you guys had done.
Wait, there's one there. I thought that was a Ziggy card, and there's the cake pan. Yeah.
There's the cake pan.
And then I think at the in one of the earlier slides, there's actually a.
Oh yeah, there's a Ziggy card.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I guess I did find some Ziggy. Yay!
Well, it's weird that it worked out that way. And
Yeah,
then in one
I
of
didn't
the
even
first
realize.
slides, too, there's a Cupid doll, which also is a comics thing too.
Yeah.
So there's a connection here. Yeah, I used my Ziggy cake pan to make a very beautiful cake for the Melinda Con that we did in Brooklyn a few years ago. So.
Well, there you go. Ziggy and
That's
Zon's
great.
World.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
So because of you, we now have a Ziggy cake pan in our place at iSource Cinema where we do our events because again, my girlfriend bought an Elf one and a Ziggy one. Do you think, hey, when Nick and Joe come by, should you give those to them? And I'm like, they all have these.
Yeah, they
I
already have
guarantee
them.
you they have these.
They don't need
Sadly,
more of
we
those
all
things.
have all of them.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be an influence on you owning one too now. So.
Yeah, so
Use it well.
I've made an elf cake. I've yet to use the Ziggy to make a Ziggy cake, but it will happen. We'll wait for the right time. However, what we also mentioned that you have a book out right now.
I do,
and
yes.
You've been touring it.
Oh, there it is.
I have one next to me at all times, just in case.
Right.
Sleep,
Right.
shower, always.
You've just been doing a bunch of touring for it. And as I alluded, I believe it is released by Fantagraphics, right?
It is indeed. Yeah.
Right. So, as we mentioned, for Toronto locals, you can get it at the Beguiling. And for anyone from my hometown of Kingston, I did make my father-in-law get it for his bookshop as well.
Oh, that's great.
So it is available there for both those cities in Canada. So, and they beat the tariffs. So you can still get them at the same price as everybody else right now.
Well, that's great. And it's actually, I kind of can't believe I'm saying this and that this is true, but it is. It's completely sold out. My book is sold out everywhere.
That's amazing.
So
Congrats.
if physical copies exist at those shops, those are the only copies left. So
Hopefully
the distributor is out completely.
I know
and it's
Beguiling did,
going
but...
into its second print run now.
Oh, excellent.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
I hope my father-in-law was fast enough to do it when I asked. But if not, they'll be getting second print in there. Let's see the tariffs beat us this time. I don't know. We're us evil Canadians are doing reverse tariffs on books. That's the dumbest thing we could do to fight it.
It's all dumb. It's all dumb.
Way to just thanks Canada to bite yourself in the ass.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt anybody but ourselves. We'll get over it soon enough, and then we'll be more comfortable, and we'll come and visit Ohio, and I'll high five touchdown Jesus.
Yeah.
In that world of underground comics, since you got your degree, Morgan, you said you had taken some notes down because you said, well, if we're talking to a professor, I made sure I got notes. Is there any?
I said I was going to take notes down.
Oh, you didn't actually do. You're a terrible student.
The only thing that I really noted was what we talked about was that they showed the Silver Snail comic book shop, and that guy was playing pool with prostitutes. Those are the two things that really stood out to me while I was. Yeah, right, exactly.
That should be a new edgy comic book to release now. I mean, actually, it's actually really suiting that we did talk about. Now I'm thinking it was air pirates, living in a world now with the last video we did. We just talked about Screamboat, the horror spoof of Steamboat Willie. And
I didn't know about that.
There's a whole slew of those.
Wow.
It's one of the only of these now new public domain horror movies that I actually enjoyed. That's not saying a lot. Don't put that as a hype. When I say I really enjoyed a thing, that's not to be trusted.
No, definitely not.
Here with the Killer Clown shirt, but you could make something like that and not get sued for it anymore.
Right.
Now is the world that someone needs to make the Air Pirates 2. and we're in such a desensitized world that no one would be shocked or cared at all.
No, definitely not. Yeah, that stuff's so mild now. So
yeah, in that world of underground, is there a icon for you, like a number one on that sort of Mount Rushmore for you?
Of underground cartoonists in particular?
In general, yeah,
Jay Lynch is probably one of my favorites. I love Kim Deitch a lot. I really, really love Aileen Kaminsky Crumb and her work that she did for like Twisted Sisters. Like there's a lot of even in the underground comics world of comics, it was still very misogynist and male dominated, but there was this whole like, women's liberation offshoot of it with people like Trina Robbins, who I know is in the documentary, kind of taking the lead on, and a bunch of different women's collectives that put out books or comic books like Twisted Sisters. There's one called Tits and Clits and all kinds of great stuff. And some of those are, among my favorites. Aileen Kaminsky Crumb's stuff, her Goldie comics, is like the first like really crude autobio stuff that I'd ever seen by a woman before, and like totally blew my mind. So highly recommend.
And shockingly, some of that stuff does stand to today's weird standards, where it would still shock people from it. Yeah. And maybe because again, it's still a male-dominated world, and we're all too triggered. We're the ones that are us. Men are the real snowflakes behind it all. We're the ones who get, oh, you can't say that. You can't mention vaginas, like that kind of thing. It's true. We still live in that world. But the rest, if Mickey Mouse has sex in a like what is it, a cave somewhere, that's fine. We could do that now. But if you just talk about female anatomy, every senator is going to like hide for the week.
Yeah. Sad but true.
Great. Well, on that wonderful note.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks so much for coming. Say hi to Rambo for us, as we could hear Rambo in the background.
Yep, I'm sorry. He's parking for a walk.
That's the cameo we're waiting for.
Thanks for having me, you guys. This was really fun.
And we will send you the Commander Rick
I'll send you
a Gravity episode so that you can share that too.
I absolutely will. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much. We'll see all of you weirdos again very soon. If you didn't get it, wait till the second print book, and we'll flash that on the screen in a moment there as well. And we'll see you weirdos elsewhere. Thank you again, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.